Every time you connect to Wi-Fi, every time your phone finds a Bluetooth signal, every time a GPS satellite locates you on the surface of the Earth with precision measured in meters. The invisible architecture of wireless communication that holds the modern world together is operating on a principle that was invented in 1942 in a house in Los Angeles, open corner bracket, and a private drafting table set up by a woman who the movie studios had decided the world only needed to see, never to hear. The wireless revolution was not born in a corporate laboratory. It was not designed by military engineers in classified facilities with unlimited budgets and institutional recognition. Its foundational patent was filed by a film actress and a composer, donated to the United States government as a patriotic gift for the war effort. Promptly confiscated under legislation designed to strip enemy aliens of their property, ignored for 2 decades, and then quietly incorporated into military communication systems while its inventor received nothing. Not credit, not compensation, not a single letter of acknowledgement. Her name was Hedy Lamarr. The world had decided she was decorative. It was wrong on a scale that the wireless signals crisscrossing the planet at this exact moment make measurable and impossible to dispute. Welcome back to Medusa Awakened, where we unearth the voices they tried to bury. She was born Hedwig Eva Maria Kiesler in Vienna in 1914, the daughter of a Jewish banker. And she moved through European society with the particular ease of a person who was strikingly beautiful in a world that rewarded beauty with access and consistently mistook it for the whole of a person's interior life. She became an actress. She appeared in a Czech film in 1933 that contained a brief scene of nudity that scandalized audiences across the continent and made her notorious in precisely the way the 1930s understood notoriety: as something to be punished or exploited, never as evidence of courage or complexity. Friedrich Mandl noticed her. Mandl was one of the wealthiest arms manufacturers in Europe, a man who supplied munitions to both Hitler and Mussolini, who moved through fascist power circles with the comfort of someone whose product was always in demand, regardless of which side was prevailing. He pursued her, married her, and made her a trophy displayed at the tables where European power consolidated itself. The marriage was a cage constructed of extraordinary luxury and absolute control. Mandl was possessive to the point of pathology. He bought up every print of the film that had made her notorious. He refused to allow her to work independently. He brought her to dinners where the guests were generals, scientists, and military engineers from the German and Italian establishments. Men who discussed guidance systems and remote control technology and the vulnerabilities of radio-controlled weapons over the finest food and wine in Europe, confident in the assumption that the beautiful woman at the end of the table was decorative furniture. They did not imagine she was paying attention. She was paying precise and systematic attention. She had the kind of mind that does not discard information but files it, connects it, builds structural understanding from pieces that appear unrelated. She memorized what she heard at those dinners in the way that an engineer memorizes a schematic, not as social observation, but as technical data that might one day be applicable to something that mattered. She began planning her escape. The escape, when it executed, was theatrical. She drugged her maid, took the woman's clothes, and disappeared from Austria carrying secrets in her memory that no one had thought to protect because no one had thought to consider that she was listening. She reached London, where she met Louis B., mayor of MGM, who signed her immediately, renamed her Hedy Lamarr, and prepared to sell her face to the world as a commodity. Hollywood received her as a product. Mayer understood exactly what he had acquired: a face of extraordinary symmetry and a European accent that could be deployed across a range of exotic, dangerous, alluring characterizations that the American imagination of the 1940s found irresistible. He cast her as the femme fatale, the foreign temptress, the beautiful woman whose sexuality was the whole of her characterization and the only thing the studio system permitted the audience to encounter. The roles required very little of her mind. The studio system was not interested in what the woman behind the face thought about anything. She was a visual commodity, and visual commodities were not expected to have opinions about radio frequency modulation or the mathematics of ballistic guidance systems. She played those roles. She was effective in them. She was also, at home after the cameras stopped, doing something else entirely. She had set up a drafting table and worked at it at night, reading scientific papers and experimenting with chemistry and engineering as an autodidact. With the specific intensity of someone who has no institutional support and is driven purely by the problem itself. She was thinking about the war. She had watched those European dinner table conversations become policy that became bombs, that became bodies in the Atlantic. She was watching news reports about Nazi submarines torpedoing ships carrying Jewish refugees escaping exactly what she had escaped. And she understood from her years at Mandel's table what the technical problem was. Radio-guided torpedoes were vulnerable to frequency jamming. If an enemy could identify the frequency on which a torpedo's guidance signal was being transmitted, they could broadcast interference on that frequency and the torpedo would lose its target. She knew this because she had listened to the men who designed those systems discuss it as an unsolved liability while they assumed she was not listening. She understood, in precise technical terms, what a solution would need to accomplish and what principles it would need to employ. The solution she envisioned required a collaborator with specific expertise she lacked. She found one in George Antheil, an avant-garde American composer and her neighbor, who had spent years experimenting with the synchronized operation of multiple-player pianos in his experimental compositions. The conceptual leap that produced frequency-hopping spread spectrum communication was the application of a musical synchronization principle to a military communications problem. If a torpedo's guidance signal hopped rapidly and unpredictably between many different radio frequencies, according to a pattern known only to the transmitter and the receiver, the signal could not be jammed by any enemy who did not possess the hopping sequence in advance. The synchronization mechanism was solved using a concept adapted from player piano rolls, perforated paper advancing in synchronized steps on both ends of the communication. They filed the patent in 1941 and it was granted in 1942, patent number 292-387. They assigned it to the United States government without royalties as a gift for the war effort. Because they wanted Allied forces to have access to the technology, and because they assumed that institutions received gifts in good faith. The Navy's response was a document of institutional condescension that has entered history as a case study in the cost of dismissing minds that do not match institutional expectations. The Navy would not, they explained with the tone of men who have never been asked to take seriously a suggestion from a woman, be installing a piano inside a torpedo. If Lamarr genuinely wished to contribute to the war effort, the suggestion came with the casual contempt of people who have never noticed they are being contemptuous. She might use her physical appearance to sell war bonds. She did. She kissed soldiers at fundraisers and raised tens of millions of dollars. She went home and was presumably meant to feel that this was an appropriate equivalent to the scientific invention she had just donated to a government that had not thanked her for it. If you believe history has been engineered to produce lone male gods while erasing the women who built the altars they stand on, subscribe to Medusa Awakened. Let us rewrite the narrative together. The legal mechanism that eliminated her ownership of her own invention was both precise and comprehensive. Because Hedy Lamarr had been born in Austria, classified as an enemy state, her intellectual property could be seized under the Trading with the Enemy Act. The government designated her patent enemy alien property, which transferred it to the state without obligation or compensation. The patent was not deemed useless. It was simply transferred to a new owner who owed her nothing. It expired in 1959. During the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, the United States Navy implemented frequency-hopping spread spectrum communication across its fleet. The timing was not coincidental. The patent had just expired. There was nothing left to pay, no rights to negotiate, no inventor to credit or compensate. The technology that emerged directly from her patent became the foundational principle of CDMA wireless technology, which underpins mobile phone networks globally, as well as Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and the GPS systems that are at this moment locating billions of people on the surface of the Earth. Corporations built a trillion-dollar industry on a principle she had patented in 1942. She received nothing from any of it. She grew old in a world that had been built on what she designed, and that did not connect her name to what she had designed. She became consumed by her physical appearance in the way that people become consumed by the one currency they have been told is their only value. She underwent surgery after surgery, spending money she no longer had, altering herself in ways that eventually made her refuse to be photographed or seen in public. She became a recluse. She died in Florida in January 2000, at 85, largely alone. In 1997, the Electronic Frontier Foundation gave her its Pioneer Award, acknowledging her contribution to the technology that had become the invisible infrastructure of the digital world. She accepted by phone because she was too frail to travel. She said she was glad it had finally happened. 3 years later, she was gone. Every wireless signal crossing the air at this moment operates on a principle she invented at a private drafting table, while Hollywood owned her face and the military dismissed her mind. The spread spectrum technology that makes wireless communications secure, that allows billions of devices to share frequencies without collision. That is the reason your Wi-Fi works and your phone connects and your GPS is accurate. That technology was designed by a woman whose mind could not stop working even in a world that had no institutional space for what her mind produced. They told her she was a face. The military told her she was an enemy alien. The corporations built an industry from her blueprint, without her name on any of it. Her frequencies still circle the planet. Every wireless connection made anywhere on Earth is, in a precise and measurable technical sense, hers. Her name was Hedy Lamarr. She invented the architecture of wireless communication. They told the world she was just a face. The signal never forgot who designed it.